What's the one thing that will make you achieve 3 times more goals in the holiday season? I've been studying this subject for the past 8 years, literally working entire holidays, making goals and analyzing, and I realized that it all comes down to these 3 principles. I promise that what you will achieve in these holidays with these principles, it will be the best resolutions that you will ever get. So basically, whatever goal you will put in, you will get. And the way that I'm going to do it, I'm going to give you the story, give you the lessons, and then I'm going to give you the secrets of mine. So I remember when I was young, and it will all make sense in a second. I was young and I was always in the holiday seasons making all of these YouTube videos. The thing with it is that it got me a little bit of attention, but definitely it didn't get me to where I wanted to get. And I noticed that there is a trend with it, is that it never works. And I was like, dude, there's holiday seasons. I feel happy when I was making the videos, which is awesome because I enjoyed it, because it's kind of like, that's what I want to do. So I have to use the holidays to do what I want instead of doing something that will make me worse of an individual. So that's what I was doing. But I never made the achievements. The first year, second year, basically I started at the age of 14. When I got to about 5 years in, I realized that, well, I can actually make it work. But let me explain. So I spent 1 year just making my skills better, and it will all make sense because that will help me in the future. So I literally made my skills better, and what that gave me is just the confidence. So this is a step that you can skip. I truly believe that a lot of people can skip the entire year that I took for me to learn and make my skills better. The next year, I was confident in what I was making, so I was making consistent videos in the holidays. And if you're not making videos and you don't want examples with videos, I also did that with the other sides, whether that be in school or college degrees, or that be in business as a business founder. So I was doing that, and now I'm doing it more consistently. Just a few months in, it's like the second month, I realized that I'm now reaching my all-time highs in terms of views when it comes to content creation, and the same goes with my business founding that I founded. It was my all-time high grossing months, and I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. What about school? It's also reached all-time high. And that's why they say when it rains, it pours. However, I'm going to show you how to make it always rain. And if it rains, it will pour. Because it's all about data. If we analyze and we understand what makes the rain rain, we can duplicate it. And for me, I realized that if I study that period, I can duplicate it infinitely to get what I want. And a few years later, I was always trying to figure the reason out until one day. So there is only one thing that I learned from 8 years of making goals. It will be this one thing is collect data, collect information, analyze what you've been doing. I just took the past 30 months and I wrote down everything that I thought had an effect in one way or another on my performance, whether that be on the content creation, business founding, or in college. So it was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. How many things that I think affect me as a human being, which makes all the habits included. And that gave me at first initially 18 metrics to track, 18 different habits covering all aspects of life. And I realized that this makes a lot of sense. And I asked myself, and also asked my loved one, my mother, and I said, what is the best version of myself in my entire life and in past 30 months? And I knew the period. My mother told me that this is the period, so it's sure that is the period. And I looked at the data and I found that it all made sense. In the 18 habits, it was almost all perfectly aligned. So the best ones I was doing them, and the worst ones I was all avoiding them. So it was almost a perfect score. And that's why it was the best version of myself. And it was, okay, now I'm going to do it even more. What's the second best? And I've seen that, and I saw it was very close to the other one. I said, now I have to make sure that this is real and it's not just a coincidence. I went to the worst period in that 30 months. And I realized that it's almost the opposite. So I was not doing the good habits and I was doing the bad habits. And here I'm just saying habits to simplify it. They're not all habits. There's a lot of metrics that you cannot say about them habits. They're just metrics. As an example, my social life. Am I social? Am I not social? Am I medium social? Just a little bit. That's not a habit. They're just a trait. They're just a metric that happens in your life and you choose it. If you track it, in my case, I realized that being so social, that doesn't help. Being not social at all, that also doesn't help. So I have a sweet spot. And even I analyzed it further and I used AI to comprehend this point. And I realized that for me, I have to socialize, but with the right people. So if I have the right-minded individual, I don't have to be socializing with tens and tens of people a day. I just have to socialize with a small group of people that are like-minded, bright-minded, that I like, right, etc. I can do that. And when I say I like, it's just a word that I threw here just to simplify, but really it means that they believe in my goals, they support me, they have positive energy, my vibration, my thought vibration, my unconscious mind, and their unconscious mind goes together, etc. Okay, and it's better if they have specified knowledge in something that I love, I want, related to me, which means that we can exchange, we can do a mastermind alliance, we can grow together. But the thing is, this is just one metric that I tracked, and in fact, everyone can do the same. Because me, and I realized that also happened with my friends. Because my best friends, I was like, you know what, I just discovered this new metrics tracking stuff, and I want you to do the same. So it's kind of like insisted, really. And they had the time, so they did it. And they found it very good, and I looked at their data and I found that there is a lot of similarities between me and them, and also the best version of themselves. So that makes all the sense. Yet, there is a lot of stuff to understand about doing in holidays. Doing this alone will not just set you up. Of course, it will set you up to be better than your past self that is not analyzing and collecting data. But there is also another thing, is that if you don't do it, you cannot be as productive as you want and reach your goals in the holidays. You have to use the Parkin's law, which means you have to condense the long-term goals in short-term. This is something that Elon Musk uses in a conference a long time ago. So it's not something that he's now telling when he's the richest man in the world. It's actually earlier on. He said, every company CEO or business founder or insert whatever you want have to make his 10 years goals his 6 months goals. It not only will give him the chance to actually achieve it, but it will also make him better than his peers, because they have the perspective that it has to take them 10 years, while he believed that it will take him only 6 months. And he's the richest man in the world. And it's not only that, the Parkin's law on itself is known and it's talked about in so many different books, including the 4-Hour Workweek, when he gave an entire segment just talking about the Parkin's law and how people use it. And actually, the 4-Hour Workweek cannot be completed and cannot be named what the actual name without the Parkin's law. It's one of the most important elements in the book. So when you see this, you're like, okay, now what's the Parkin's law? The Parkin's law is making something that usually takes you longer, and you will make it a goal to do it in lesser time. So let's say you are a salesperson and you have the holiday season and you want to sell more. So let's say you do one let's say cold calls a day, 100 cold calls a day. You say, in this holiday season, let's say there's 14 days in holiday season, you're gonna say, instead of doing 1400, I'm gonna do 2000. So it's more than what I usually do. And as a pro tip, do more. Say 5,000. Say something that is completely unrealistic, that will give you the motivation and will excite you. If it doesn't excite you, then it's not the best. If it excites you, that's good. That's where you want to be, because that excitement will give you the energy, will give you the adrenaline pumping in, so you take on all of the tasks that you have to do in order for you to make that task completed. So make it unrealistic and be fine with that. As long as it's something that you can control, there is nothing wrong with that. So if I say that I have to make 5,000 calls a day in the next 2 weeks, and I know I do 100 a day, of course I'm gonna aim for that. You understand? Because it's just unrealistic. It's something that you probably never done before, and 5,000 calls takes me about 50 days. 50 days is a long time. It's almost 2 months. Okay, so we're like, okay, now what usually takes me 2 months of day-to-day work, non-stop, not including weekends, I can buy those 2 months with only 2 weeks. Of course I'm gonna take that trade. But the thing is, you have to put in the work. And the good thing is, with Parkinson law and with making the goal unrealistic, so don't give me like, you're doing 100 calls a day and you say, well, in the next 14 days, I want to do 1,500. So you're adding 100 at the span of 14 days. Nah, you probably are not even going to do it, because it doesn't give you. If the goal doesn't excite you to make it, you don't even have a chance to achieve it. Let alone go in, put in the task, go through one, fixing the problems if that it is, whatever. So you have to make it unrealistic. So you excited. You have to be excited about it, and then condense it in unrealistic time. Preferably less than 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, something like that. Don't go for 2 months, 3 months. No, just go for 2 weeks, because you can predict. Like, usually life doesn't usually change in the span of 2 weeks a lot. It's rare. But when we're talking about 3-6 months, yes, you cannot predict what will happen in 3-6 months, but you can have an estimation about what's happening in the next 2 weeks. So you can, that actual chance of you actually doing what you think you have to do is really high in comparison that if you give yourself just a 6 months goal or 3 months goal or more. Now good. Now, how do you know what goal you're choosing? I gave now the example. So if there is one thing you have to know to choose the right goal for you, is this: you have to know what is your best version doing, your best version of yourself. What is your best ideal dream can be? It's like, what's the biggest dream you have in your life? The biggest. It doesn't have to be realistic, just like the biggest dream you have in your life. And you're like, okay, now break it down to me. What do I have to do in order for me to get there? Whatever helps you to get there, sure, it works great as a goal. Because not only it will give you the excitement of the goal, but it will also give you partially the excitement of the bigger goal. Even if it's unrealistic, actually, if it's the more unrealistic it is, the better. And that's why Steve Jobs has said something very famous of a quote. He said, the only people that will change the world are the people that are crazy enough to believe it. So you have to believe it first, then you have a chance to believe it. And the meaning of this is like, not everyone who believes that he will change the world will be, but definitely everyone who changes the world believes he can change the world. So here is the tricky thing about believing. Believing, unconscious mind, vibrations. I said about a few things that maybe caught your mind, but usually our unconscious mind just escapes the stuff that we cannot comprehend completely, because that's how our mind basically works. Is if he has something so important, we usually neglect it, because we know it's usually the more important it is, the harder it is to get done. And that's why it's also a big thing, okay? It's like, if you have a to-do list and there's something that is sitting out there for days and days, months and months, You should start with that, because usually that is the most important task, and you're literally not doing the most important that will, if you do that one thing, probably your entire life will change. The entire to-do list will not matter. So focus on that and give yourself a few days to actually find the solutions. And the reason why we do not do that as humans is because it's hard. We don't know how to do it. In comparison, we know how to do the little to-do tasks that we all have. Okay, now you comprehend a few essence. But, as I said few words that you don't comprehend, and it might sound odd. When I talk about thought vibration, unconscious mind, all of these words, it's really just the essential or the essence of all of this. If you think and you believe that you will make it, you will, but it's not your bullshit BS that you see on Instagram Reels. You see, the first time that I read Think and Grow Rich as a book, if you don't know it, it's written by Napoleon Hill, the guy who spent 22 years just writing a book, studying the richest man in the world and hired by the richest man in the world to study those people and make them in book publicly to the people. Of course there is so much knowledge, and of course it is a go-to of a book for every entrepreneur. So if there is one thing that you have to learn from Think and Grow Rich, whether you want to read it or not, it's this. Your unconscious mind is the most powerful tool you have. The only way to access that is by training. The only way to train it is you have to have a very solid desire to do something, and it has to be mixed with emotions. If it's not emotionally driven, you cannot access your unconscious mind. For it is the responsible for every good thing that happens, whether that be in hints, inspirations, and all of the artists and the inventors in history have used it. They always exist in that realm. And 5, you have to protect it just like you protect everything else. In fact, you have to protect it more than you protect your life, because it is what will literally transcribe what you have here into its physical reality. That's it. That's the main point of an entire book. We're talking about crazy knowledge. When I say crazy, I say a condensed amount of knowledge that there is no wonder why the author is literally stating time and time again to read this book every month, because he knows that it can happen that you have an information overload. It's loaded with information, and every chapter is a book of itself in regards of the information that is put in. So when we say vibrations, when we say unconscious mind, it's something that you cannot stress this enough. And look, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, and I'm gonna give you one principle and one story. So, this is big, dude. So, damn, that's crazy. Okay, hear this. This is one of the most impactful stories in my life. So, there is one event that happened to me in college that changed my life forever. So there is one quote that I always used to say, and I thought it's just so smart of me and just so stoic. Little did I know it will literally cost me 1 year of my life. So this quote was the following. I was always telling to people in college, I said, look, if you study all the time, non-stop, 24/7, and God doesn't want you to succeed, you will not succeed. And if you don't study at all, not even a single word, and God wants you to succeed, you will succeed. And I repeated that. Little did, and people were everyone that I told him this thought that I am some sort of crazy. And I didn't hear myself. That's the thing. And here's the thing. Here is the most powerful of the story, is that literally what I said has happened by the world, by the word. I was studying all night, all day. I was the 8th in the class, and I still didn't succeed that year. I literally got suspended for 1 year, repeated the entire year for just one little subject that nobody ever repeats. Tell me about the power of unconscious mind. And then I realized on how dumb I was. And most people are making the same mistake, and they thinking like, how am I not getting all what I want? Focus on what you say, focus on what you hear, and focus on your inner dialogue with yourself. Now, guess what I say? I say, even if you don't read anything at all, if God wants you to succeed, you will succeed. Because everyone will succeed. There is no reason why God will make everyone succeed except you. Because I learned my lesson. And look, when I was crying alone, my mother was crying, my family was crying, nobody was with me. So if you think that saying these things that will give you power to your unconscious mind might look weird or odd to the people, who cares? Because for me, when I was there, when I was crying, my mother was crying, my family was crying, for literal months, nobody was with me. So I don't give a fuck about what they think. That's what it is. And for a lot of people are just trapped in the prison, enslaved by other people's thought. They don't understand that the most important thought that they have to take care of and they have to care about and make into consideration is literally their own unconscious mind. Whether that being what they say vocally, what they hear. What they hear is also as important. Actually, in the book, The Richest Thinker to Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he talks about this. He says you have to protect your energy, your thought vibration, the information that gets into your unconscious mind. Because that will literally translate into its physical equivalent. And the fact is, your unconscious mind doesn't know about between what's real and what's not, what's a lie and what's the truth. So even if you lie to yourself, your unconscious mind has no clue about what you're saying. He just knows, is it positive energy or negative energy? That's it. And that's why the principles of using the unconscious mind willingly is to mix a strong desire. So you want to achieve more goals in holidays. You have that deep desire. Then you have to mix it with emotion. You say, well, I have family and they're suffering financially. I have to make it in this holiday or they will continue to suffer, and probably they will suffer even more. Because inflation, there's stuff that are always adding up. So you mix your reasoning with emotions. So you have a strong desire also run by your unconscious mind. And look, if I truly believe that there's only... this is big. If I only believe that there is only one thing that will change the literal life trajectory of anyone on earth, it will be knowing what you get to your unconscious mind. Knowing what you say to your unconscious mind, which means talking, when you hear it, people tell you, and also what you say to yourself, the inner dialogue. And also mixing emotions with whatever desire you have. And last but not least, you have to have strong desires. The people who have stronger desires to have someone, they will always get it. And that's it. And look, as I promised, now you're ready to do whatever goal you want and actually achieve it in the holiday with no excuses. And the thing is, you can do it now. And what you've seen here, you can never unsee. So you might as well subscribe.